Mystery Wine Blind Tasters. It's Thursday night. It's the third Thursday of the month. And that means it's time to figure out what's in this glass. If you're here, if you have this bottle and you're ready to play the game, let me know and we'll go from here. This is one of those wines that we've talked about many, many times that has an expressive quality right out of the glass and has an indication perhaps of something going on relative to its appearance. And so you know a lot about wines. It's kind of neat walking around the restaurant, looking at wines in people's glasses that I haven't served and trying to guess what's going on in the glass. And per our experience of doing this every month, you get decent at it, right? I've seen on Instagram too that the group Wine Folly does sort of a similar thing to what we do, but they do it in a series of kind of pictures and questions, and they give you a couple of choices relative to what the grape is. And it's kind of neat to see how much we come together and learn by way of our process and how it relates to theirs. And so excited to do it again with you this evening. Greg, good evening. Welcome. David and Allison, hello. And the Kavitskys are here tonight from Pennsylvania. Good evening. So glad you are still in receipt of a number of the wines you picked up last time you were down here. I hope you have a couple more, or maybe that means you have to come down for our October wine buying event and restock. That's on the docket toward the end of the month. We've got two great wine dinners. Man, we're really fortunate in October. We usually do one a month, but this October is going to be special in that Johan Henschke from Australia and the Henschke family winery is coming into town and will be visiting with us and sharing his family's extensive history. He's the sixth generation of the family to run the property, to participate in the property he's running, and will be here with us just to taste some extraordinary wines, arguably, in my opinion, maybe one of the best wines in Australia, period, and Hill of Grace, and certainly one of the great wines in the world. And then we also have Mark O'Shar returning to us. It's been a number of years, but Mark is one of the family members of the O'Shar family who has run Chateau Moussard since the middle 1940s. And is from Lebanon, making just extraordinary wines, wines of character that no one else in the world makes. And so we're grateful to have him coming out to us in October too. I think there's a few spots left. So Dean and Bobbin are with us. Trisha, Andy and Kathy. Hello, hello. Oh, Greg, nice call. So this was a burger wine. Yeah, it has kind of that, it seems, I haven't tasted it. I've just looked at it and I've just now smelled it a little bit. It seems kind of deeper red, maybe a little bit of black fruit, juicy, just by appearance. So we'll see if that's the case as we get into this, but let's go. So what do you see when you swirl this wine? What color is it? What formation do we have of the alcohol up here? Is it rich and forming little tears that streak down fast and don't maintain? Is it forming legs that hang out for a long time and are substantial? Where are we at? Nikki, good evening. So nice to have you here. Is Kenny with you too? Yeah, that was super fun, Allison. I remember that too, the COVID tasting when Tony was joining me. We did the O'Shar Red. That was awesome. And so, yeah, those wines are special. And this year, after we gotten past COVID and I heard Mark was coming back into town, I was in line first and early to ask that he come and visit with us again and share the wines. We're going to taste an older vintage and a younger vintage of the red and the white and one of the rosés for our seminar. And then we're going to go through a series of other interesting wines for the dinner too. So we'll taste a bunch. Chris is saying it's dark and inky. Hello to Kenny. The persistent tears from Greg. It's concentrated, right? Yeah. It's got these persistent tears. They're coming down often and they're consistent and persistent and they hang. So we're talking about potentially a higher alcohol wine, something that has a little bit of power to it. There could be residual sugar in this wine. It could be a sweet red. Tony did that to us once. He had a sweet red in there, and that was befuddling. I doubt it, but it could be. So you're looking at alcohol as either expressed as alcohol or as residual sugar. So the potential alcohol really of the wine coming from a ripe place, and that is the indication that you see as you swirl the wine. Very oaky, coming from Nikki. Dark fruit, yeah, it's wonderful dark fruit, like that juicy kind of ripe fruit. Blueberry, cool. Blueberry for me always kind of evokes a little bit of Grenache, sometimes Zinfandel, and that would fit with this sort of juicy profile. So I'm not trying to get ahead of things, but right off the bat, I'm thinking when I get that sort of thing, when you get a tell, when you get the petrol note, you think Riesling. When you get sort of a woolly, waxy kind of note, you think sort of Chenin Blanc. There are tells. And blueberry kind of, I don't know for sure if it's Grenache or Zinfandel, but those are things that I see Grenache, I see the blueberry having characteristics associated with those two varietals more often than not. Rebecca, that's hilarious. Is this what you do when you get older? Yeah, this is what we call fun. You can tell your daughter this is called fun. For her, you can tell her that, for me rather, you can tell her that it means work. Tough work. So blueberry and herbs, thank you for adding that too, Greg. So that herbal note, right, maybe more of an indication of old world rather than new world, but the up front, we're talking about ripeness, we're talking about really fresh fruit, might have taken me toward the new world. So I think that just adds a little layer of complexity, and I don't know yet, and we don't have to know yet, but you're just starting to build that profile. If you were just not to get that herbal note and just say, you know what, I think it is old world, you'd be like, all right, well, it's all fruity. Where is it coming from the old world? Would it be just fruit? Not many places specifically, but it could. And on the reverse, so if you've got that sort of herbal element and you say, I think this is really new world, well, then you're going to talk about maybe where that's coming from. And there might be a few places where you have sort of this old world experience. I was just talking about Australia, for example, with Johan Henschke, and that might be a place where you get some of this really ripe fruit and some of that herbal stuff because they have very old vine material. In fact, some of the oldest vine material on the planet. Cool. Yeah, Julie, what do you see in the meniscus? Exactly. Thank you for bringing me back on track. Yeah, you've got this rim, right? So this, if you're looking at the rim of this wine, just the edge, is there a color variation? Sometimes you see a little watery quality on the meniscus or what looks like a clear element, and then you've got the actual wine color. There's not a huge one here, but there's a little bit of one, and that's oftentimes also an indication of a little bit of higher alcohol. So that's here. I don't see a big variation from this point here on the edge to the interior vis-a-vis some color change. So it doesn't go from sort of a brownish color on the outside to a deeper core color on the inside. It's sort of consistent at this point, which is an indication of age, not age. So more of a youthful wine. You'll see a variation in that color as the wine ages. Dean, nice. Rosemary and bay along with a little bit of oak. Cool. That's neat. That reminds me of hiking in Carmel, California, right? The bay laurel trees and rosemary kind of growing wild there, and warmth, sunshine. Yeah, I like that call a lot. There's a meatiness here too. There's a little bit of a cured meat, or even just a sort of a dry aged meat character. Bay leaves and black fruit. Awesome. Yep, I think that's a really nice call, adding that herbal element here. So awesome. Very good note there too, Julie. Appreciate that. Western chaparral style type herb smell. That's pretty cool. Very specific and awesome. Okay, let's taste this wine. Let's see what it tells us as we taste this wine and whether we can verify the profile that we've created so far, right? It's going to be a little bit warmer climate, we think. It's got ripeness to it. It's got texture, we think, by way of the legs and tears. It's going to have, we think, maybe a little bit of a higher alcohol profile to it. It has potential Grenache, Zinfandel, deeper, richer red characteristics to it. Spain has been thrown out to Old World. So we're thinking maybe Old World with some New World character, or it's New World, but with a little bit of an Old World character. And that's sort of the in-between kind of play back and forth. Chocolate and tobacco coming from Chris, big tannins from Allison. Ooh, you right. Yeah, it's got power. It's not like super brash tannin. Like, let's talk about the tannin. It's there, right? It's there up front. It's there in the middle. It is there in the finish. It is not as aggressive all the way through. The dark chocolate part, the cocoa, the tannin, it's got structure. So when we're looking at structure like this tannin, we're talking about varietals that have thicker skins in a warmer place where you're going to get some of that extraction of that tannic quality. And Bordeaux varietals are oftentimes associated with that tannin. You can certainly get it in, say, Nebbiolo, but not with that sort of fruit and that texture. You can get it from Shiraz. You could get it certainly from Grenache, Syrah, Mourvèdre, kind of a blend, or maybe a Garnacha from Spain. So it's fascinating. So we got that herbal element and that superfruit element. We've got some powerful tannin. There's alcohol here. Is anybody else feeling that sort of in the back burn? Yeah, it's viscous, aka whole milk, per Dean Wolf. Dean, yeah, I agree. So we're talking about a full-bodied wine. What did you put on the burger as you paired it tonight, Greg? Because I think this would be a fun burger wine, especially if you have some rareness in the burger and you didn't cook it all the way through. I mean, our smash burger with the bacon jam would be fun too, kind of sort of that meatiness, but a little bit of rareness might be fun to have the tannins kind of bond with that and smooth this wine out a touch. Julie is throwing out warm climate Syrah, so kind of Washington Syrah, excuse me. Petit Verdot is thrown out, Zinfandel, Grenache. I just said Bordeaux varietals too. So should we consider Cabernet here or Merlot? I don't think this has got Cabernet Franc characteristics, even if with that herbal element. It's not less about bay laurel kind of smells than it is about sort of a green pepper pyrazine thing when you're talking about Cabernet Franc. So maybe not there. The blue note, the blueberries we touched on earlier, sometimes you see that in Malbec, and Malbec could be another varietal. Ketchup, cheddar, medium well, awesome. Yeah, this would be fun with that, especially that cheddar cheese element. Okay, so a couple of you have kind of hit on it, but we're talking about full body, power tannins up front. Where's your acidity at? Kind of medium acidity, right? It's not lingering well past, but it is present, well structured. So medium plus body, medium acidity, medium plus tannin, black fruit, and some of that herbal element. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, Dean, that's a nice point too. So a little bit more black pepper, maybe Zinfandel. So not necessarily Zinfandel. And this is really great. That's a great way you're approaching this is I don't find this, so I can take this out, as opposed to I found these things, it has to be this. Both ways work. Both ways are important in this process. You can definitely start to work it from both angles. Ripe fruit, warm climate, Chris is talking about. So if we take out Zinfandel, or we leave it in, but it could be Zinfandel. Let's talk Zinfandel, for example, California, or let's say Primitivo from Italy, where we would get maybe some of these herbal notes vis-a-vis what you might get in California. And so that's kind of a fun way to go back to the point we were making about an old world producer with a new world style wine, or a new world producer with an old world style wine. So you could have old vine Zinfandel from California. You could have younger vine Primitivo from the old world, and making sort of it difficult to understand what's going on there. And so I think there's reason to consider an old world wine here with a real ripe character. So something like Spain, something like Southern Italy. Maybe we should consider Australia. Should we consider Argentina? As Julie also kind of agreed relative to the Malbec side of things, or Malbec from somewhere else. But I mean, where else is kind of prototypical Malbec? I don't think this is southwestern France. Is this Cahors? Cahors would be a region in southwestern France that has Malbec as its principal grape. It can be pretty structured, really tannic, really powerful, dark and inky. Yeah, I agree with Chris on this, and others have noted maybe not quite Zinfandel. I think the structure is a little bit too brash for Zinfandel. There's a tannic quality about Zinfandel to be sure, but it's not quite as frameworky, as blocky as this one is. This one seems like a scaffolding that's visible on the outside of the structure, as opposed to something that's seamless on the inside. And there's usually some tannin on the inside of Zinfandel that's not quite sticking out. It's not quite as gangly. For that reason, a Cahors Malbec might be interesting, because I've seen that certainly before. I've tasted those wines. They have a rusticity to their tannin expression. Petit Verdot, are we talking Petit Verdot from Virginia? Because this would have more persistent sort of tannin than I would expect from that standpoint, but it definitely has some of the fruit character. How about Grenache and Syrah, Mourvedre? So we had Syrah from Washington State. We have Grenache kind of notes from southern France, Languedoc or something like that, or southern Rhone, Côte de Rhône. Too fruity for an Argentine Malbec. Okay. Too fruity to go with the tannin structure, maybe. Too full body for Grenache. I think it is too full body for general Grenache from southern France, but from Garnacha in Spain, I think we could be looking at a pretty clear expression of this. I tasted one the other day from Campo Borja, and that was big and powerful and rich. It had more oak than this, but nevertheless, it can have this kind of full-throated, full tannic expression. Chris, you had already thrown in Carignan, and I didn't acknowledge that. Carmenere, I think we would see maybe a little bit more of that pyrazine note, the bell pepper kind of quality, and I'm not getting that here. It also has more of a sinewy tannin, which I think Carignan does too, but I'm not sure Carignan would be, if it's a single varietal Carignan, would have this level of fruit expression this dark. I think we'd get a little bit more red, black. But I think the tannin and expression of this could be certainly attributed to Carignan, so it's not a bad call. Put some more in here. We're at almost 20 minutes, and this is where things start to shift and change. Chris, yeah, a Priorat. Absolutely. It could be. I generally appreciate Priorat and the Garnacha from there, and the Carignana, the two grapes we were kind of just talking about, being a little bit smoother, a little bit more elegant. Monastrell, cool. So Spanish Red makes a lot of sense to me to go with that sort of meatiness. I think that's kind of, I like that call. There's a tannin quality about this, though, that it's hard for me to place. I'm not sure I know. Like, I feel like I could say to you that I don't think this tannin profile is from the Priorat. Absolutely could be another place in Spain, kind of Garnacha, a little bit warmer, a little bit less old vine, a little bit more vibrant, something that's got a little bit more energy in the vines, just more youthful, in terms of, not that Priorat's not vibrant, it is, but it's more concentrated. It's got more clarity in its expression by way of that vine age. Whereas this just seems like there's more production happening and a vigor that's coming from that production, that sunshine, The vines are happy, healthy, and just bursting forth, and the fruit is powerful. Greg's throwing out burgers and steaks. What time is dinner, man? This is sounds delicious. Torbjorn is, I'm sorry, I missed your note. Dave, you think it's cab? Okay. Cab from New World, like a California cab? You think a California or an Australian cab? Do you think we're talking about Bordeaux, for example? It might be interesting if this was sort of a Cabernet Malbec blend from Cahors. That happens. Yeah. Kind of like that call. Anybody picking up oak? We haven't talked much about oak on this wine. The alcohol is still there in the hot end of the backside of it. There's yeah, there's not much in the way of, I mean, the tannins sort of at the finish are sort of maybe masking a little character of oak. There's tons of fruit, so I'm not experiencing much in the way of new oak. So I don't know that this is a very oaky wine. Sarah's saying that same thing. She's not picking up enough fruit necessarily, fruity quality for Napa Cab. It's maybe if this was oaked, it's kind of old oak, sort of larger oak. It's not really about an oak expression. It's much more about that fruit and tannic expression. So yeah, cool. All right, so let's recap and kind of work our way toward a conclusion. We've got definite kind of rim meniscus variation with a watery quality, so a higher alcohol, which is really reinforced by the tears that formed consistently and persistently and then maintained in the form of legs and are still on the glass right now. So we're looking at warmer climate, ripe fruit expression, herbal notes, medium plus body, maybe even heavy body, full kind of medium plus tannins, medium acidity. So we're talking place that has warmth and has a grape that has a little thickness to the skin. I mean, it's got tannin expression in its skin. It also doesn't have a whole bunch of oak. And so this is more about the grape and the place than it is about a winemaker's perceived style. I mean, they're making a choice not to put oak on it too, but it's more about this grape and the warmth of that place. Ooh, there's more coming in now. Yeah, that herbal note's coming up a little bit. This is a confusing wine for sure. It has characteristics that take you a whole bunch of places. David and Allison, I appreciate where you two are both at. It's perplexing. A little bit of old world, a little bit of new world, warm climate for sure, but it'd have to be in both places, and confused on the grape. So Dean covering some bases, Spanish mostly, Garnacha, Monastrell, or something different. Sarah, you're putting Petit Verdot out there in the world. Okay, good. So we've got Garnacha, Monastrell, we've got Carignan, we've got Petit Verdot. I think we ruled out Zinfandel. We had Malbec and Cabernet, Malbec and Syrah. So we've got all sort of the medium plus weighted reds and no real exact tell. The blue fruit element takes me again back to Grenache or Malbec, especially because we're not talking about, you can get some of that blue fruit maybe with Australian Shiraz, but this tannin structure, I don't see this being Australian that way. Northern Portugal, to a Douro red. Mataro from Australia, that's pretty cool. So Mourvedre or Mataro from Australia. I'm glad you're enjoying this, Dean. Yeah, there's a great pleasure in having a perplexing wine because it makes you work. It makes you really kind of focus on what you do know, what you don't know. And then there's the anticipation, the excitement of learning something because you maybe didn't get it. So where do you want to plant your flag? I'm personally, I'm weighing Cahors, so a Malbec from southern France. I'm weighing Garnacha from Spain, somewhere ripe, warm, and powerful. I think I'm going to go southwestern France for Malbec, Cahors, maybe a little Cabernet in there, but mostly about that Malbec there, because it has some of that old world air character to these grapes, and that ripeness, the tannin power that's rustic. Tannat, sure, Tannat can be in there too. Could talk about Mataran. I don't think you'd get the sweet kind of character of the fruit with the Tannat. It's more earthy. It's young, so 2020, 2021. Yeah, I'm glad you like it. You guys, Dean and Chris, hopefully everybody else does too. It's a really neat wine. For the price point too, to get this much fruit, this much structure, this much power. It has ageable characteristics by way of that tannin structure, and it is perfect for that burger, for that steak on the grill. It is sort of a nice wine that gives you a bunch of power. It's also pretty drinkable. I mean, relative to that structure power, it's got some freshness in the way of the acidity, and so, yeah. I'm going to be floored, Julie. So you've already looked. You've peeked. All right. So Nikki's saying Spain, not Garnacha. Not Tempranillo. So Monastrell. Cool. Alicante, maybe Jumilla. Jumilla is a nice call. Yep. So ripe expression of Monastrell. That's nice. It's a great call too. Chris playing the price game, the Price is Right game. And yes, lots of fruit and power. Portugal or Spain is usually a good guess. I think you can make an easy argument for Portugal and for Spain. You can easily make those arguments well, and maybe from Monastrell too, something like that. That gives you that structure, less than Grenache. Thinking about that blue element, but yeah. All right. Since Julie's looked, we all get to look now too. Arbui from Alicante. This is Monastrell, guys. 2020. Way to go. Way to go, Nikki and crew. That's amazing, guys. You nailed it. That's awesome. 15% alcohol. So it's got a little of that heat on the back end. It's got a beautiful structure to it. Oh, wow. That is really cool. From Alicante. So you nailed it. You guys, awesome. Wow. That is very, very cool. Fun wine to try. Definitely a great wine. Greg, that is a major shift from Chianti Classico to this, for sure. But this is a pretty wine, right? This is a wine with some character to it and some power. So well picked, Julie. Thank you for that. Wow. And it keeps changing. It's still growing. It's still evolving in the glass. 30 minutes in now, it's definitely not fully expressed, and it's not fatiguing in any way. Awesome that you had your ringer with you, Nikki. That's awesome. Well, kudos to them for playing very, very well. This is an extraordinary. You nailed it. Well done. You got the Alicante, you got the Monastrell, and 2020, the vintage, youthful wine for sure. But one that if you had a couple bottles of this, you could lay down for a while. If not, you could certainly enjoy it, as we said, with all manner of kind of richer grilled fare and things that just have a nice bit of richness to them, but also could handle the things like a pickle or a relish or something like that on a burger. It can handle with a little bit of that sort of sweet sour characteristic. This could play that way too. So cheers. Well played. What a joy to do it. Thank you very much. I look forward to doing this again next month, and hopefully seeing many of you here prior to that point. And if not, when you do arrive, look forward to that too. Cheers, everybody. Have a great rest of your weekend and the rest of this bottle.